The ICC has arrested Central African Republic war crimes suspect. Something about the Seleka faction. Central African Republic soldiers kill 44 rebels. What is this about? 44 rebels are going to get killed by the Central African Republic. There's been 200,000 refugees. There's a major refugee crisis in the Central African Republic, and they're going into the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Cameroon. So the Central African Republic soldiers killed at least 44 rebels in an offensive against the fighters that have been launching attacks against the government of the newly re-elected President Faustin Archange Touadera. So remember that name, Touadera, because I'm going to explain to you the elections that just happened December 27th, 2020, and then I'm going to read a little bit about the Civil War, which has been going on since 2012. So the fighting occurred in the village of Boyali. So 44 rebels were killed in Boyali 3 days ago, January 26th. January 13th, there were 2 United Nations peacekeepers were killed. There were 3 United Nations peacekeepers killed in December 2020, going up to the election. Right now you have 3,000 United Nations peacekeepers. So 200,000 refugees. There's a major refugee crisis. 44 rebels were killed in Boyali, which is about 90 kilometers, 56 miles from Bangui. Bangui, the capital. Prime Minister Firmin Nigrabada said on his Facebook page Tuesday, everything will be done to put an end to this adventure aimed at the destabilization of the country's institutions. The army also regained control of Boda in the southern part of the country with the support of Rwandan and Russian soldiers, according to Bienvenu Ali, the director of somebody doing something. Okay, so what the hell is going on in Central African Republic? This is what I understand. So the Central African Republic is one of the richest nations in the world in terms of their resources, in terms of their raw materials, their, minerals, and their oil. Central Africa, they got oil, they got gold, they got diamonds, they got uranium, they have cobalt, they got lumber and a whole bunch of other stuff. So one of the richest countries in the world is Central African Republic, but it's also one of the poorest countries in the world, and maybe for the exact same reason, because you get all the multinational corporations, they, rape the shit out of everybody, take whatever they want, and then the people don't get nothing. So the Central African Republic is landlocked in between Congo, Democratic Republic of the Congo, South Sudan, North Sudan, Cameroon, and Chad. And Chad apparently is a major military regional force. So Chad is fighting on the side of the rebels. Now you got the United Nations, and you got Russia, and you got Rwanda, all fighting on the side of this President Faustin Touadera. So the elections happened December 27th, 2020. Now you have probably the biggest opposition leader. There were 16 candidates, and Faustin, it's a runoff election, so you had to get more than 50% of the election to win. And Faustin Touadera, who was the president since 2016, won 53% of the vote, meaning that he's the brand new president. No runoff election is necessary. Now, this runoff election is a Kyrgyzstan cutthroat runoff election. We need instant runoff voting. That's a fair, this runoff, the way that they do it, it's so combative. Whereas if we had instant runoff voting, that would solve so many problems. It's a nicer conversation. It's more fair for everybody. It's just a better election system all around. Instant runoff voting for the world. The world needs instant runoff voting, clearly. So G0Media.com had reported on this election. You had Francois Bozizi. Okay, so I'm going to just say Bozizi. Francois Bozizi. He was known as a strong man, and there's United Nations sanctions on him. There's some war crime charges he's faced with at home. From 2003 to 2013, he was the president. He ran the Central African Republic. So for 10 years, right? He's a dictator, totalitarian dictator, wants to keep power. Now the court He moves back into the Central African Republic and says he's running for president, but a high court had disqualified him because of the war crimes charges, which are by the Central African Republic, the government of the Central African Republic themselves, and because of the United Nations sanctions. So, what's going to happen? December 27th, 2020 is going to happen. Touadéra is going to get 53% of the vote. There are 16 candidates, including 3 women, but Touadéra is going to be able to beat all of them. How did Francois Bozizi do? We don't know, since the court disqualified him. His name was not on the ballot. And so it is the people, the followers of Bozizi, that are saying fraud. They're pulling a Donald Trump, right? They're sitting there saying it's fraud and it's all, you know, rigged against him. And in a way, yeah, I guess they kicked him out, but shit, he was in there for 10 years and he's a tyrannical dictator. So what are Bozizi's people doing now? Those are the rebels. Bozizi's people, they're cutting the food supply chains to and from the capital, Bangui, so they're trying to starve the population. Food prices are skyrocketing, and there's, on top of this, you know, the civil war here, which I'm going to get into in a second. Apparently, Francois Bozizi is a Christian, which kind of shocks me. So there's 5 million people in the Central African Republic, which is about the same population as Colorado. That's refugee crisis per capita. Okay, so $510 is how much per capita GDP is the people of. So it's one of the richest countries and the poorest countries. Per capita GDP is $510. You have armed rebels who are in Baton Gafo and Bria. So in Baton Gafo and Bria, that's where you got Bozizi's people. And then 44 rebels that were killed in Boyali, those are Bozizi's people too. And then the UN peacekeepers getting killed, that's Bozizi. Bozizi is all over the place. Bozizi is the big boogeyman, the motherfucker that's actually starting all this shit, which means that Rwanda and the United Nations and Russia is on the right side, it looks like to me, and Chad, which is a regional military power apparently, are on the wrong side. Now, Russia has promised the world that they've only sent 300 military advisors, which is, you know, America does. JFK sent Vietnam military advisors. Yeah, okay, military advisors. There's no fighting. We're not sending fighters. We're only sending advisors. Okay, so whatever. Russia, United Nations, Rwanda are on the side of Touadéra, who was elected president 2016, got re-elected president December 20th, 2020. And even if the Bozizi's people are mad about it, he's been in there for 10 years. That's a dictator. That's too long. Court disqualified him. He's got war crimes charges, United Nations sanctions. This is, you know, probably just a self-preservation move. But people are dying, so Bozizi needs to be arrested immediately, and he needs to be put on trial for all the shit that he's doing. But Russia, they promised there's no fighters there, so. Anything else? No. That's, so there you go. There's, oh yeah, there's some things. So, according to Wikipedia, it's a landlocked country, the Central African Republic is. In Central Africa, it's bordered by Chad to the north, Sudan to the northeast, South Sudan to the southeast, Democratic Republic of the Congo to the south, Republic of the Congo to the southwest, and Cameroon to the west. The Central African Republic covers a land area of about 620,000 square kilometers, 240,000 square miles, and it's got a estimated population of around 4.7 million as of 2018. As of 2021, the Central African Republic is the scene of a civil war ongoing since 2012. 2012, 8 years, so this election's got nothing to do with the Bozizian. There's something else going on here. In the preceding Central African Republic Bush War, started 2004, the government of President Francois Bozizi, he was in there from 2003 2013, So Bouazizi's going to fight with rebels. He was the one fighting with rebels, and there was a peace agreement in 2007. The current conflict arose when a new coalition of varied rebel groups known as the Seleka accused the government of failing to abide by the peace agreements and captured many towns in 2012 and seized the capital in 2013. So the Seleka were the rebels against Francois Bouazizi. So Bouazizi fled the country, and the rebel leader, Michael Djotodia, declared himself president. Renewed fighting began between the Seleka and militias opposed to them called Anti-Balaka in September 2013. President Djotodia disbanded the Seleka coalition, which had lost its unity after taking power, and resigned in 2014. He was replaced by Catherine Samba Panza, but the conflict continued. July 2014, ex-Seleka factions and anti-Balaka representatives signed a ceasefire agreement. By the end of 2014, the country was de facto partitioned, with the anti-Balaka controlling the south and west, from which most Muslims had evacuated, and ex-Seleka groups controlling the north and east. Faustin Archange Touadéra, who was elected president in 2016, ran and won the 2020 election that triggered the main rebel factions to form an alliance opposed to the election called the Coalition of Patriots for Change, which was allegedly supported by former President Bouazizi. Peacekeeping largely transitioned from the ECCAS-led MICOPAX to the African Union-led MISCA to the United Nations-led MINUSCA, while the French peacekeeping mission was known as Operation Sangaris. Much of the tension is over religious identity between Muslim Seleka fighters and Christian anti-Balaka, and ethnic differences among ex-Seleka factions, and historical antagonism between agriculturalists, who largely comprise of anti-Balaka, and nomadic groups who constitute most Seleka fighters. Other contributing factors include the struggle for the control of the diamonds and the oil and the gold and uranium, and so it's a resource-rich country, and it's also fighting for influence amongst the regional powers such as Chad, Sudan, and Rwanda, and international powers such as France and Russia. More than 1.1 million people have fled their homes in a country of about 5 million people, the highest ever recorded in the country. Wow. So 1 out of 5 of every person in Central African Republic have fled their homes. And so it's kind of crazy, only 200,000? There's only 200,000 refugees? A lot of the other refugees are internal, so they're not getting out of the country. So there you go, that's some Central African news. There was one thing here. The rebels' attack was the most serious threat to Bangui since 2013, the capital of Central Africa, when a coalition of predominantly Muslim rebels known as Seleka overthrew then-President Francois Bouazizi. The Seleka formed a government that they said would redress the years of marginalization of the country's Muslim population. Later that year, the Seleka government was challenged by militia fighters known as the anti-Balaka, who attacked Bangui. The anti-Balaka began attacking Muslim civilians, beating people to death in the streets, destroying mosques, and forcing tens of thousands of Muslims to flee Bangui in 2014. The Seleka rebel president eventually stepped aside amid international pressure, and an interim government organized democratic elections in 2016, of which Touadéra won. So it looks like to me that that election kind of solves this. Faustin Touadéra was the rightful president, got reelected, and Bouazizi, you've been in there for 10 years, you got overthrown, you ran out of the damn country, now you're coming back in and you're trying to do a coup d'etat. So Bouazizi, yeah. Touadéra, I think Russia, Rwanda, United Nations is on the right side. I think Chad is on the wrong side. Touadéra is the good guy, Bouazizi is the bad guy. I'll finish this. This is Yahoo.com. While Touadéra won re-election to a second term in December with 53% of the vote, he continues to face opposition from forces who are linked to ex-President Bouazizi. who is disqualified from taking part in the presidential vote. Much of the recent violence began after the courts rejected his candidacy before the December 27th elections. Perhaps they should actually just have a runoff between Bouzizi and Touadera. Just put their two names in a damn hat and see what the hell goes on. Because, yeah, I could see if, you know, that's a lot of people. They keep on doing this. That's, you know, I don't see MAGA psychos, you know, perpetually doing the shit like Bouzizi. I don't see like the MAGA psychos being the Houthis or Al-Shabaab fighting for 10 years for the same. The violence is also inflaming Central African Republic's humanitarian crisis, in which tens of thousands of people have fled to neighboring countries since December. So there you go. There's an update on the Central African crisis. For Cameroon's sake, we have bases. We have a permanent base in Chad. We have 2 temporary bases in Cameroon. We have, that's it, none in Sudan and none in the Congos. So we don't have any military bases in the South or North Sudan or the Democratic Republic of Congo or just the Republic of Congo. We do have 1 military base in Chad, which seems odd since Chad is on the side of the, and so we can help Chad come to the error of their ways. And we also have, you know, 2, that's a permanent, we got a permanent military base in Chad, also 2 in Niger, 1 in Senegal, 1 in Burkina Faso, 1 in Ghana, 1 on Ascension Island, St. Helena, 1 in Gabon, 2 in Kenya, 1 in Uganda, and 2 in Djibouti. Temporary, we got a couple. We got 1 in Tunisia, 1 in Mali, 2 in Cameroon, 2 in Libya, 5 in Somalia, 1 temporary, 1 in Kenya, 4 temporary ones in Niger. So there you go. There you go. That's why is there a refugee crisis coming out of Central Africa? I just told you. Go back and rewatch the video, will you?